BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast, delivering you all the news, the views and the analysis you need every weekday morning. It's Thursday, the 14th of March. I'm Phil Goodlad, and here's what's coming up for you today.
What about that for a touch from Murray? And here's Jan Danda! He's done it!
County creep closer to Aberdeen after Danda drama at the death in Dingwall. It's also a big night ahead at Ibrox.
Fabio Silva chops onto the right, blast and a cross chance! Rangers score! To John Sterling! And Rangers sensationally have their lead back here in the Deluge! Absolutely astonishing!
Can Rangers beat Benfica to reach the Europa League quarter-finals? And
it's all over by the shouting now, and they're both really hanging on. They really are all over the place. United are romping 4-0 at the moment.
As ever, on a Thursday, we look ahead to the weekend's championship fixtures.
This is the Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Loads to get through this morning. Delighted to say that Jordan Campbell of The Athletic joins us, and also Mr. Ian Holland McCall, manager of Clyde. Ian, I am surprised, touched, and also flabbergasted at finding out that your middle name is Holland. I never knew that. All the years I've watched you as a player and as a manager, I didn't know that.
It was my great grandfather's name, who I didn't know. So that's the long and short of that one. Yeah, it's a bit daft, but there you are.
And you've not got the memo that the BBC got a few years ago to say we now must refer to Holland as the Netherlands. You're not.
No,
Ian
I must have missed that memo from the BBC. Yeah.
There's so many that come in.
Yeah,
so many.
Imagine.
Jordan, you have any middle names pertaining to famous European countries?
No, I've not got a middle name because my dad wanted to call me after Elvis, and my mum decided that was not happening. But my grand has got an interesting one called Hyatt, which I've never heard before, so maybe one day I'll keep that going.
Hyatt?
Yeah, Hyatt. I don't know where it comes from, but it sounds
named
like
after a hotel.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if that's how he came to be, but
do you know? Shall we just decide not to speak about Scottish football today and just speak about middle names? Possibly not. Although I'm sure Aberdeen fans would like us to do just that. We'll get to them in just a moment. First, let's rattle through some of the day's headlines. Jan Danda scored a controversial 98th minute equaliser for Ross County as they drew 2-2 with Hibs last night in Dingwall. That result, coupled with Aberdeen losing 1-0 at Dundee, it means that 11th place County are now just 3 points behind the Dons. Rangers will need to find something extra to beat a really talented Benfica side at Ibrox in the Europa League last 16 tonight. That's according to the boss, Philippe Clement. The tie is currently level at 2-2 after last week's first leg. And Scotland's 2 home warm-up matches for Euro 2024 are to be broadcast live by the good old BBC, following a deal with rights holders Viaplay. Gentlemen, let's start with last night. First things first, Ian McCall. When a manager, even though he's interim, comes out and says, we're bang in trouble, that is something for Aberdeen fans to worry about, given what Peter Leaven said last night.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't mince his words, and I think that's something to be admired. When I looked at it last night, Aberdeen have won 6 league games in 29. For a club like Aberdeen, that is really awful. So, and that last minute goal gets Ross County within 3 points. I didn't see the game, but I've read the reports, and Tony Docherty, an old coach of mine, reckons that Dundee dominated most of the game, and were 1-0 did not flatter them in any way, shape or form. They are in trouble. I think they're in big trouble. You've got to think Livingston won't make up they're not out of it yet by any manner of means, but they're a little bit detached. But Ross County, although Aberdeen's got a vastly superior goal difference, within one game of them, it's worrying times. I mean, the thought of Aberdeen getting relegated it's beyond the pale.
2 things, Jordan, that I pick up this morning. Firstly, Aberdeen, 11 games with a win now. They are banging relegation form. The second thing, Ross County's 98th minute equaliser last night. A, shows they're fighting right to the death, but B, it's that intangible factor in sport. They've got momentum.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you have to go back to the 2nd of January, the last time Aberdeen won a game in the league. I mean, that is beyond belief for a club that size to be so out of form, even at home, unable to get a win over anyone really. So yeah, I think that last minute winner, the last minute equaliser for Danda is a big point for Ross County. You know, they're now looking upwards rather than looking over their shoulder with 7 points clear of Livingston. So I think for Peter leaving, you feel for him a bit because that's twice now he's been thrust back into an interim position. And now there was a strategic review came out during the week, which seemed to sort of be aimed at appeasing the Aberdeen fans to show them that don't worry, we've got some sort of a plan. But you know, it was quite vague in terms of some of the suggestions that they've got going forward to improve the structure of the side. Because I mean, you can talk about structure all you like. They've appointed managers and fired them so quickly, and then they've brought in Neil Warnock. That's been and gone in 6 weeks, and now they're back to an interim manager who must be wondering, how long am I going to be in here? They're talking about bringing a manager in during the international break, and you look at that squad and you think, are they going to be able to get a big enough reaction? Because there's a flip flopping from one manager to another, and I think you can have so many voices in a short period of time that it ends up becoming really diluted. So I do worry about Aberdeen with these final few months of the season.
I'm conscious that almost every daily football podcast in the last week we've been focused on Aberdeen, and I promise we're going to get to other teams in just a moment. I just wonder, Ian, with your experience of managing and being at clubs that haven't found themselves wanting at times to scrap, when you look at the Aberdeen squad, when you look at their players, do you see a team that can scrap their way out of relegation problems?
Well, I see 2 or 3 players. I mean, firstly, I've got to say, a strategic review, I've been in football for 45 years, and maybe I'm a dinosaur. I have no idea what that is. Aberdeen back fans will be thinking, how much does that cost? And we need to get people in to do a strategic review of our own club. I mean, you know, appoint a really good manager, appoint an experienced, proper manager, and let him do his business. I mean, they have got, obviously, Shinnie, I know Nicky Dev going well, will be giving up the ghost, but you wonder, and a lot of foreign players, in fact, that it was Danda who'd signed a contract with Hearts, who showed they were still fighting for Ross County. There was no bigger statement than him scoring the equaliser in the 98th minute. I mean, listen, we're painting it is doom and gloom. There's no point in not painting that picture, but they're one result away from scooting, getting 6 points clear. If they get 6 points clear of Ross County, that's still a gap. But as we've all said, they're deep in it. They're deep in it.
You've got players like Shinnie and Devlin, but I think you even look at Shinnie as someone for inspiration. You look at him now and he's still trying to play the same game as he was playing maybe 6-7 years ago, and it looks like he's not able to do it anymore. And I think when you've got a lack of legs in the middle of the park, you're really struggling. I mean, Dundee in that first half were just absolutely cutting through Aberdeen at will. I mean, Lyle Cameron's been great for Dundee. It's nice to see a young Scottish player actually taking the top league by the scruff of the neck. But I mean, he was cutting through Aberdeen at will. And I just did not see any sort of dynamism to them at all. But again, everything comes back to recruitment. I mean, like Ian's talking about, you bring in a manager and you give them trust. That's one way of doing it. I mean, they had Darren Mowbray in, who's now down at Southampton, doing a good job down there. They had him in for a year and a half, 2 years, and he did a really good job bringing in like Miovski, Duke. But then you look at the summer, how many of those players have actually made an impact in the team? And you count on a couple of fingers, never mind one hand. So Aberdeen have got money. They've had more money than they had under McInnes, but you had an average points total of about 65 points under McInnes, finishing second, third, fourth, God knows how many semi-finals and finals. And now Aberdeen fans were, I think, right to think it was coming to the end of its time, maybe the tenure, they needed a new change. But I mean, it's been, ever since then, they've not gone forward at all. So I think maybe you reflect on McInnes' time now a bit differently.
Ian, a word on Dundee. Do you think that Tony Docherty needs to finish in the top 6 for people to actually realise how good a job he's doing at the side that only came up last season?
I think he's very, very highly thought of because of the work he's done with Derek over many, many years. I took him into Dundee United as a youth guy, and after working with him at Falkirk, and I wasn't going to, but I was very, very. He's got something that you can't you don't get taught, you don't learn at the coaching courses. It's a way he treats, is the way he is with people, and it's the way people are attracted to him. And that really works well in terms of building a dressing room. I think because of the style of football they've played. A young Luke McCowan, one of my old players at Ayr, has been terrific this season. I think even if they finish outside the top six, he'll get a lot of credit in the bank for what he's done this season. But ultimately, when you come so close, there's a point between then and Hibs, and they're a point ahead of Hibs just now. They'll all be really gutted if they don't make it. But I don't think that should judge his whole season.
Moving on, a huge game at Ibrox tonight. 5:45 kickoff for us. Rangers against Benfica. 2-2 the tie after the first leg in Lisbon. Jordan Campbell, Philippe Clement says in the run-up to this one that the whole of Europe would take notice if Rangers beat Benfica. Do you think that's accurate?
Yeah, I think it is, because it's got parallels of the Dortmund game for a couple of years ago, where you were around earlier because Rangers finished second at the time, but that was viewed as one of the biggest teams they could have got, and it was sort of accepted that it's probably a hurdle too far. And I think once you go past a team that size, the whole draw opens up, and you start thinking, well, if you can beat Benfica with Di Maria and Otamendi and these world-class stars, then I think there's not many teams that you would fear, especially with the Ibrox factor. So, no, I think if Rangers can get through this, get into the quarterfinals, then it's anybody's game, really, if they can avoid Leverkusen and Liverpool. But for that first leg, I think Rangers will take a lot of confidence for that, because we're obviously sussing out what the level of the opposition is in that first leg. And I think as good as Benfica look going forward, they look very shaky at the back. And I think with Ibrox behind them, we've all seen what that can do to teams, especially in the opening half an hour of games. Since they came back into the Europa League in 2018 with Gerrard, they've lost to 4 teams at home. It's an incredible record. Teams just go there and can be completely flattened at the start. So my only concern for Rangers is they've started to look a little bit leggy the last couple of games, I think, in midfield. Players like Lundstrom and Diamonde are being asked to completely empty the tank every 3 days. And I know Clement is right to want to fight on all 4 fronts, but you worry that they're going to spread themselves too thin and potentially come up short. But I don't think that'll be a problem tonight. I think with a crowd behind them, they'll need to come out flying. But you get so many injuries that you start to think, where are they actually going to have the firepower on the wings, because they're so, Cortez, Matondo's back, Cantwell's back, but these are all central players. You're missing Sterling, McCausland potentially as well. So my worry is, where's the firepower out wide to really go and implement that sort of in-your-face game plan for the start?
Ian, put yourself in the Ibrox dressing room tonight as the manager. Do you send out the players at home for the first 20 minutes to keep it tight, or to go out and really have a go and try and get the early advantage and get Ibrox rocking and see what Benfica have in between the lugs when it comes to how they can handle that pressure?
Yeah, I think you can do a mixture of both. I think you can remain compact and getting back in a defensive shape quickly while kind of blowing the bugle and getting forward and creating chances. Rangers' record against Portuguese teams is really good. It is a big ask. The funny thing I was thinking was, I remember 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, we all talked about the European nights at Celtic Park, and that's come full circle now. I think people talk about the Cauldron of Ibrox now, the European nights that used to be Celtic Park, not as much anymore, because the atmosphere will be sizzling, and it is a great opportunity. We mentioned Di Maria and Otamendi, and they have been world-class players, there's no doubt. But I get the feeling they're a wee bit, they're on I'm not saying they're on the last legs, but let's say they're not what they were. So I think it's a great chance for Rangers to take a scalp. But, in the first leg, Benfica, as Jordan said, going forward, were very good. And their record at home is great. But Portuguese teams don't, it's a huge generalisation, but they don't seem to travel well. I think Rangers get a great chance.
And John, just quickly, we saw the other night with Porto and Arsenal. Porto, 6 points behind Benfica in the league at the moment. For Portuguese football to have 2 of their big names knocked out in 1 week, and we know how well Arsenal's doing just now, but that line about Rangers making Europe sit up and take notice if they were to win tonight. That would be a real statement going into the last 8.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you look at that Porto team the other night against Arsenal, very, very good side. So, under no illusions here of how tough the challenge is against Benfica, but I think for us to be sitting here thinking that Rangers have a good chance, and that wouldn't be a surprise if Rangers run over the top of Benfica in the opening half an hour. I think that says a lot about what Clement's done with this squad, because it was basically a write-off in September or October, and he somehow managed to transform it with a half-fit squad and just mix and match, rotate half his team almost every single game to get them into this position. So, I mean, I think this is the big test as to whether he can really, really bridge the gap in quality, because there is a gap in quality there, no doubt about it, but the Ibrox factor has become such a big thing in recent years that if you get a second leg at home, if you're within a goal going into it, and Rangers are probably unlucky not to be a goal ahead, never mind level, I think you fancy Rangers that's enough to power them through if they get a good opening half. But yeah, if Rangers get through, 2 Portuguese teams knocked out, then it's a great night for Rangers. It's also a great night for the Scottish coefficient, because it looked like it was going to be a really bad season for it. So if Rangers can rescue that and try and keep Scotland in the top 10, 11, then that would be a massive, massive result.
This is the Scottish Football Podcast.
Before we go, Friday night, Dundee United, they travel to Dunfermline in the Championship. Ian, I can't let this one go without just asking you quickly about the match that'll be live on Sports Scene on the BBC Scotland channel. United, given that Wraith moved to within a point of them midweek, how big a moment is this in the title race for United to hit back?
Yeah, listen, every game, it's not just about Dundee United as well. Dunfermline have their own, shall we say, issues. I mean, they could still make the playoffs at either end because of the craziness of the league. But Dundee United have seemed to hit their stride without ever playing well. I think the return of my old captain Ross Docherty really, really galvanises them and helps them. The following day, Wraith are at Queen's Park. That is not a gimme now, the way Calendar's Queen's Park playing. They're far better organised. But it's a big test to go to Dunfermline for Dundee United. It's not as if they're one of the Dunfermline pride themselves. They're potentially a Premier League club. I don't think there's any doubt about it, everything with their stadium and their fan base. You'd still expect Dundee United still to come out on top. I think defensively they've been incredible. The defensive record this season when they've had their normal back four. It's a tough game. It's a hard one to call, but as usual, that league, which is bonkers, utterly bonkers.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan, I quite like the idea of a water cooler moment in the athletic office, because you must just be holding court right now. Look at the top and the bottom of the Premiership. Look at the top and the bottom of the Championship. You must be telling your colleagues, forget the rest of the European leagues. It's Scottish football where it's happening.
Oh, believe me, I'm always banging the drum on that. But I mean, the Scottish Championship year in, year out is always one of the best leagues. I mean, we always talk about widening the leagues, making them 20-team leagues, but that is the beauty of a 10-team league, where the level's pretty similar and the budgets are pretty similar throughout. Is that, what is there? I think there's 9 points between third and ninth. I mean, it's incredible with 10 games to go. So yeah, I think it's the whole, we call it the home of British football. We'll doctor it to that this week, but yeah, I think it's going to be a great run-in. But yeah, you would fancy Dundee United I know we talk about the defensive record, but you've got Louis Moult and you've got Tony Watt. These are players who have done it in the Premiership, so you would back them to come to the fore during the run-in.
Ian, Holland, McCall and Jordan, no middle name, Campbell, thank you very much indeed for joining us today on the Scottish Football Daily Podcast. Remember, the big one tonight as far as European football is concerned for our game, Rangers against Benfica, live from Ibrox, Sports Sound. It's a 5:45 kickoff. Kenny McIntyre and the team on air from 5 o'clock. Sports Sound, online, on digital and on your smartphone. And remember, Dunfermline, Dundee United, live on the BBC Scotland TV channel tomorrow night, 7:30. Jane Lewis will be back in the chair tomorrow for the Scottish Football Podcast with Rory Loy and Gemma Fay. Look out for that one. For now, though, enjoy the rest of your Scottish footballing day, and we'll speak again soon.
Just a quick reminder, the Behind the Goals podcast is available every Tuesday with me, Rachel Corsey, and me, Leanne Crichton. It's your one-stop shop for our take on everything that's happening in the world of football. Just head to BBC Sounds or wherever you get your podcasts and search for Behind the Goals.